Hello everybody, this is Bird Brain. We are nerdy for the birdies. So some of you might be new to this video because I expect a lot more people will see this one, but I am an Eagles mainly focused channel, but today we're going to do a full first round mock draft with all 32 draft picks in the first round. There will be trades, there'll be all sorts of things. I consider this a semi-realistic, 75% my opinion, 25% predictive mock draft. And a lot of it will be what I kind of think should happen, mixed with some realism. I don't think the draft needs to be fully realistic, because, let's be honest, mock drafts aren't really necessarily going to be realistic, because crazy things always happen every year. There's always a pick that people say, wait, how? Like, really? That guy got taken at this spot? So, realism isn't something that really needs to exist. I pretty much did a sim of this mock draft earlier, just to kind of go through the picks and kind of figure out the trades that I'll make already. But I think we have an interesting one, and I think I have some nice picks. So, with that, let's enter the draft and get into it. So, with the first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans will take Cam Ward. I'm pretty sure everyone is tired of hearing that, but we're not going to waste our time with that. We're just going to get into the mock itself. So we got Cam Ward taken. Alright. For the Cleveland Browns, I think it can go between two players. It could be Abdul Carter, it could be Travis Hunter. And I think they take the best player in this class, which is Travis Hunter, the corner/wide receiver. I think for the Browns, he'll mainly play wide receiver and then get snaps at corner, because I think they're okay at that position. But we'll see what happens. Maybe in a game where someone gets hurt, he might take more snaps at corner. But we'll take Hunter here. So now we're on to the New York Giants. There have been talks about the Browns and Giants potentially trading back. I don't really believe that's going to happen. I think the Giants are a little more likelier than the Browns, mainly just because Abdul Carter is a little redundant on the roster, but there are rumors about them trading Kayvon Thibodeaux, and I think that does actually have some weight to it, because with Kayvon Thibodeaux, he's on the final year of his rookie deal. We'll see if they pick up the fifth-year option or not. I don't think they will. I think if they do end up trading him, they most likely will probably trade him within the next week or so, because I think you have to get your fifth-year option figured out. So I will take up Abdul Carter. You get probably the best pure defensive player in this class, one of the best players in this class, and probably the only really excellent elite edge rusher in this class, I would say. Next for the Patriots. Now, there's been a lot of debate about what the Patriots should do here. There's been talk of Will Campbell, talk of Ashton Jeanty, talk of Ted McMillan, talk of Armand Membou. Here's my honest opinion about the Patriots. As much as I would love to give them Ashton Jeanty and give them an elite run game, I just don't see it for them right now. I look at their team, I look at their roster, and I just think that they are not there yet where an Ashton Jeanty is going to have full impact. I kind of view Ashton Jeanty on the Patriots like Saquon on the Giants. Like, he'll be good and he'll produce and put numbers up, but it's not going to really impact the team as much. But the thing that I keep coming back to, it really is the offensive line for me. And their offensive line was terrible. And I know there are some Patriots fans that don't want to just take offensive line, but the way I view it, this is one of those picks that you're going to be happy with in a few months when, your offensive line is better than now when you're thinking about, the pure receiving aspect of it. So, or the pure, skill position aspect of it. So with that, we're going to take Will Campbell here. Now, Membou is also an acceptable option, and he's going to come off the board very quickly as well. We'll see. But with Will Campbell, the reason why I'm going with him over Membou is simply because I look at Will Campbell. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if Membou can play left tackle. If Membou can play left tackle, I think the pick is him. I don't know. And with the Patriots, they could just take Membou, get the better guy. But I look at Will Campbell, even if he's not a left tackle, he's going to be a good offensive lineman at some position along the line. And I think about him as a good culture piece as well, and I really think the Patriots need it. Because I don't think the Patriot way is as much of a thing anymore, if we're being totally honest. And with a lot of of those older players now being, slowly leaving the building, leaving the league. You need guys to come in and reestablish it, and I think he's one of those players. So we're going to take Will Campbell here at number 4 overall for the Patriots. So Jacksonville is on the board, and they have been pretty chalky at this spot, but we're going to do something very drastic because the San Francisco 49ers are going to trade up with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm going to do the trade here quickly, and it's going to look weird. This is not literally what I would do. I'm just doing this so the sim processes this trade because they're technically not going to give up draft picks. They are going to give up Brandon Ayuk in this trade to move up 6 spots to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars get a receiver to pair with Brian Thomas Jr., and I think the Jaguars could really use a Brandon Ayuk here, where they have 2 good receivers. Now, you really have no excuse for Trevor Lawrence. There's been some, buzz about Genty at this spot. I just don't know. Similar feeling as the Patriots, maybe a little bit better. I just don't think it's... I still just don't think... It's hard to really project running back super high, because rarely does a running back truly live up to top 5 hype. I don't think Genty's bad or anything like that. I'm just not sure if he can. So now with the Niners on the board, a lot of people have them going defensive line, and I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. But with this situation, Armand Membou is on the board, and we're going to go with him. And my reasoning for Membou, you're about to pay Brock Purdy a lot of money. Trent Williams is getting older, and your offensive line without Trent Williams just isn't very good. Here you solidify one of the biggest spots in this offensive line, because let's be honest, one of the Niners is going to have a chance to grab a player like Membou in the draft again. And here I don't know if they would have to give up a future first-round pick. I imagine maybe it would be like a day 2 pick this year, Brandon Ayuk, and maybe a day 2 pick next year, and it wouldn't be as expensive. But yeah, you get Armand Membou, you pair him up with Trent Williams, and you have a really good tackle pairing to protect Brock Purdy. And I just think this class is deeper at defensive tackle and edge to where you can build up the defensive line later, and now you grab your tackle, and now you're safe. So now the Raiders on the board at pick 6, and again, Ashton Genty has been mocked here a lot. However, we're going in a different direction, and I'm going to go with Teteroa McMillan, the receiver from Arizona, and the reason why I'm going with Tet over Genty is I think about the acquisition of Geno, and I remembered that when they made that trade, there was rumors that they were going to pair DK Metcalf with Geno in that trade. And I think the Raiders really do need a good boundary receiver. They have Jacoby Myers, who's a good receiver. They have Trey Tucker, who's a solid speed guy. They have Brock Bowers. But they don't really have that true number 1 threat on the outside kind of guy. And you can play with McMillan, you can move him inside or out. But I think he would be that kind of guy and a perfect fit to say, hey, if Geno doesn't have DK anymore to throw up those, big possession catches, now you get McMillan to make those plays. So now we move on to the Jets here at 7. Again, Genty has been rumored here, but I'm going to go with a different player. So with Membou off the board, offensive line has been very popular for the Jets. We're going to go with Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. And I just picture with Tyler Warren, number 1, they don't have a great tight end room, and number 2, they really don't have a lot of weapons on that team right now. And I don't want to force quarterback here early to the Jets. I think they can grab one day 2 and be fine for developmental purposes behind Fields. I look at Tyler Warren on this offense, and I just think, man, Justin Fields, Tyler Warren, Breece Hall, triple option in the backfield, try to defend that. That's just going to be fun. And I just think that this could be a fun weapon to kind of help the Jets out. And the way I look at it is last year, they were in the Brock Bowers conversation. They took Olu Fashanu, which was the right decision. But now, because last year you ate your vegetables, this year I think you can now indulge a little bit. And I still think you can grab offensive linemen down the board in the second round. So we'll take Tyler Warren here to be our tight end. And now we go to the Panthers. And we're going to have a little bit of a deja vu because we're going to have a team trade up here because a certain player is falling and the Chicago Bears are trading up with the Carolina Panthers. I don't worry about too much about draft capital and what it takes, but this was the trade that let me send it through. I don't think it would take a second-round pick to move up 2 spots. It might take something else, but this is what let me do this trade, and the Bears do have 2 seconds. But we are going to move up 2 spots to pick 8, and we are going to take Ashton Jeanty off the board. The Bears get their guy. He falls to the perfect offense here. Now you get this opportunity to use Ashton Jeanty the way the Lions use Jahmyr Gibbs. You have the same coordinator there, and I think the Bears are one of those teams that is a running back away from being really elite. I just feel bad for DeAndre Swift because this will be the second time a first-round running back has kind of, replaced him. So we'll see what happens. Saints at the board at pick 9. This could be a Shedeur Sanders spot. I wouldn't be shocked. The Saints are just a weird team, and I truly think they need to take this opportunity with Derek Carr's injury to just bottom out. I just don't know if they can or not, but I don't know. Shedeur would be a good fit here, but the more I think about it, I think I'm going to go with Shemar Stewart. Shemar Stewart is such an interesting prospect because there's people who have him up very high, there's people who have him very low, he's all over the place. And he's not a very productive guy, but the Saints kind of have this thing. They kind of like guys that haven't been the most productive, per se. They kind of go for these oddities in the first round at pass rusher. It doesn't always work, but I think Shemar could. He does have some versatility to be able to drop it in coverage, so that does fit the Brandon Staley scheme. So we'll go with Shemar Stewart here at pick 9 for the Saints. And the Panthers are on the board here. They only moved back 2 spots and gained a second-round pick. And I think this is a very simple pick here. We're going to go with Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. When I was looking at the Panthers depth chart today, they kind of need linebacker. They kind of need edge. I don't think he's like a pure off-ball linebacker. You want him in coverage. But I think you can kind of play around with him a little bit. Have some fun blitzing him from the linebacker position, playing him on the edge at times, and I think you can just really move him around the defense and just make him a kind of a fun chess piece. Just try to figure out matchups along the offensive line. And I think that can really help the Panthers defense, which was not the best. So now the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the board at pick 11, and we supported Trevor Lawrence. Now we're going to support your defense, because look who is here. Mason Graham is still on the board. They traded back, and they still get him at pick 11. Jaguars get Mason Graham. So you still get your guy. You move back 6 spots, and you add Brandon Ayuk. That's a massive win in my eyes. And now we're at pick 12, the Dallas Cowboys, my least favorite team. But I'm going to do them a favor. I'm going to give them Matthew Golden, the receiver out of Texas, to pair with CeeDee Lamb to help take the top off of defenses. And now we're on to the Miami Dolphins, who, as time goes on, we're starting to realize, it ain't always sunny in Miami. They've got some stuff going on. They need help on the offensive line. They need help on the defensive line. They need help in the secondary. And let's be honest, they might need help at receiver very soon if things continue the way they are continuing. But you can't plug in multiple holes with one player outside of like Travis Hunter. But you can to an extent with Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. So we go back-to-back Texas players. And the reason why I'm going with Jahdae Barron to the Dolphins, you can play him outside, you can play him in the slot, you can play him at safety. The Dolphins need all 3. Let's just get the best player and put him here. We'll figure out his best spot, put him wherever we need to put him, and make it work from there. And then we have the Indianapolis Colts, and they have pretty much been the plug-and-play spot for a tight end, and Colston Loveland is on the board. However, the more I think about it, I think you can get tight ends later on in this class, and Colston Loveland would be a good fit, but the problem is he's more of like a big slot tight end than he is like a Y lining up and blocking and whatnot, and I think they need that a little bit more, and my concern is they have so many pass catchers and wide receivers that Colston Loveland's a little redundant with what they have, but the bigger need, in my opinion, is on defense at the linebacker position, and this is not a great linebacker class, so let's grab Jihad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, to come to the Colts. You pair him up with Zaire Franklin, and now you are set. The Atlanta Falcons are on the board, and every year we scream they need to get better on defense. And they're going to do just that. They're going to take Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. I really like him. He's arguably my second favorite edge in this class. I'm not someone who cares that much about competition, because the fact of the matter is, if you're good enough to make the NFL, you're good enough. And if you can stand out against them, you can stand out in the NFL as well. I mean, he played in the MAC. We saw last year there was similar concerns about Quinyon Mitchell. We saw how good he was this year, so I'm not overly concerned. Mike Green to the Falcons, I think it's a good fit. He could fall because of character concerns and whatnot, but we'll see what happens. So now the Cardinals are on the board here at pick 16, and this is where things can get interesting. This could be Will Johnson here, straight up. This could also be tackle an offensive line. And I do struggle between the two, but to be honest, and the more I think about it, I'm going to go with Will Johnson, because I think they just need corner a little bit more. Get Will Johnson the corner. I think he's being slept on a little bit in this class. I understand that there's injury concerns, but if he is healthy and he can get back to full strength, this could be a very formidable corner in the NFL. So now we're at pick 17 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and a lot of people are talking about the fact that they need edge rush, but I think they need help in general on defense, and it's really between two players. And I'm going to go with the one that I'm not sure they can find guys like him in this class later on, and that is Malachi Starks, the safety. I'm not the biggest Starks fan after watching him, if you guys saw my safety video, but I do like him enough, and I do think he has a chance to be the best safety in this class. I was also considering Derek Harmon here, but you might want to stay tuned, Bengals, because I might have an idea for you. And here comes the Seattle Seahawks at pick 18. And I'll be honest, the Seahawks are one of the hardest teams to draft for, because really because of their GM. Because I'll be totally honest, if it were 100% my interpretation of what they would do, I would just take Gray Zabel and move on. But I know Seahawks fans don't want to hear it, because they know that's not what's going to happen. So I started looking at their depth chart a little bit more, and I started thinking about the defensive line. And I realized, what if we get a really good nose tackle into the building? And let's get Kenneth Grant, the DT from Michigan. I believe he would have played under Mike McDonald, the Seahawks' new coach, when he was at Michigan. I'm pretty sure he would have. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not the biggest college football guy, but either way, now you're just going to bolster that defensive line even more. I think it's a good move here. They could have gone edge rusher as well, but let's get Kenneth Grant in the building. And now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the board. And they have been the Jihad Campbell spot, but he's starting to rise up boards a little bit. So really at this spot now, I think the next best piece is edge. In looking at the guys on the board in terms of who's the most their type, I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. They tend to like smaller guys who can kind of blitz, and if they blitz some guys, other guys can drop into coverage and do other things like that. They love their exotic blitzes, and I think James Pierce Jr. would be a good fit for that. I do worry about some of the character concerns surrounding him, but we'll see what happens with that. The Denver Broncos are on the board, and I feel like they're in a very similar situation to the Chicago Bears, where let's get a running back in this offense and let's take it to the next level. Now I've heard Amari Hampton to the Broncos. I have heard Travion Henderson to the Broncos. I consider either or the right pick, but we're going to go with Amari Hampton here. And we're going to pair him up with Bo Nix. Steelers on the board. So we're going to actually do something here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we are going to make a trade. Houston is itchy, because they are looking at this board right now, and they are thinking about coming up here, and they feel like they need to go get a guy. Steelers accept. Now, let's see. Believe I just traded, when I mocked this, I think I just gave up a third-round pick. I don't know if this is what it would take, but whatever it does take, figure it out in a sec. Sometimes these simulators, it's hard to know really what they would accept. We'll say a future, I think it was I threw in a future 4th round pick. I don't really think this is what it would take, but so there we go. Make the trade there. Texans, they need tackle. Kelvin Banks Jr. has fallen here. Let's grab yourself a tackle. So the Texans at 21 get their tackle to help bolster an offensive line that was not great last year, and then they made it worse during free agency. Now we have the Chargers on at number 22 overall, and we're going to do Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert a big favor. We're going to give him one of his guys. We're going to give him Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. And we're just going to take him here. The Chargers could use a tight end. Here we go. Let's go Chargers. So now the Packers are on the board. And there's a lot of rumors about Jair Alexander. It could go corner here. I'm not sure which is the most the type, but the one I have picked is Savone Ravel, the corner from East Carolina, to go here. And the Packers get their potential Jair Alexander replacement. So now we have the Vikings on the board, and we're going to do something really fun. There's a certain player who's been hanging around here for way too long, and a certain team is going to make a very fun trade-up. We're going to have the Vikings trade back with the Cleveland Browns. They need draft picks. They had a pretty good free agency, so I don't think the Vikings are desperate to... I don't think the Vikings are desperate to pick in the first round. So they move up. That's probably more than what it would take. Again, I'm not uber concerned about value because, I'm more just trying to move through the mock draft. Browns trade back up into the first round at pick 24, and they take Shedeur Sanders. The slide ends here. So Shedeur Sanders is a Cleveland Brown, and we pair him up with his college teammate Travis Hunter. How about that? So the Cleveland Browns get to celebrate. They get their quarterback, and they get a really stylistic player. So essentially they get to have their cake and eat it too. Steelers back on the board again. And it's between really two players here. And Steelers fans, bear with me, because I don't think you're going to like what I'm going to do initially, but I'm going to explain it. I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe to Pittsburgh. I've heard them linked to Jackson Dart. I know that there was a report saying if certain players are on the board, they'll go with them. But here's why I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe. Steelers are in a very tough spot right now. And, we have no idea if Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year. Now, I think irregardless, Milroe should not be a starting quarterback for you this year. I'm not drafting Milroe for this year. I'm drafting him to develop behind whoever plays this year and that you have a guy. I don't think even if Mason Rudolph plays the entire season, the Steelers will ever be bad enough to just simply be able to grab a quarterback in the top 10. Because you're either going to have to give up a haul of picks to do so, or, hope that you suck just enough. And I don't think they will. And it's getting harder and harder for them to find a quarterback. And, here you get yourself insurance. Because I'm betting on the talent, I'm betting on development. I don't think the Steelers are a team that are a couple players away from being a Super Bowl contender. They don't have a quarterback yet. And even with Rodgers, I wouldn't call them a Super Bowl contender. So here you insulate your future. You get Jalen Milroe to develop. You maybe create a package of plays for him similar to what you had for Fields last year when Russ was your starter. And you have him play quarterback in those sets, and then you have him develop behind Rudolph and Skylar Thompson, and if he plays this year, Aaron Rodgers. Because if you don't do this, by the time you get to your pick in the third round, Milroe's off the board, Dart's off the board, all these other guys are off the board, and then you're looking at Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, and it's just like there's no upside there. So then we have the Rams here, and when I tested this mock draft earlier, I gave them a different player, but I thought about something for the Rams. It's not really a need, but I just look at this offense. You have Davante Adams this year, and he's going to be a really good player. And Davante Adams isn't necessarily getting younger. You have Puka Nacua, who in a year or so is going to get paid a lot of money. Let's get someone to be a running mate with Davante Adams and Puka Nacua. We're going to draft Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State. He can do a lot of that gadgety stuff that Cooper Kupp did, mainly when Kupp was younger. I mean, he could still do it to an extent, just not as much. But Cooper Kupp gets his guy here. Cooper Kupp is replaced here with Emeka Egbuka. You get your wide receiver for the future. You have Puka, you have Adams and Egbuka. That's a hard group to stop. And looking at the Rams' needs, there wasn't really anybody on the board that best fit what they needed. So I think let's just get Emeka Egbuka and we'll worry later. Baltimore Ravens are on the board here at pick 27. And I think the pick for them is Mykel Williams. They're kind of a team that can kind of just take whatever they want. I was tempted to take Derek Harmon here, but we're going to go with Mykel Williams. Give him the edge from Georgia. And we're going to have a little bit of an edge run because the Lions are going to do the same thing here. They're going to take an edge, but they're going to take Donovan Ezaraku, the edge from Boston College, to play on their defense opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. And now we have Washington. And I mentioned that there's going to be a little bit of a run on edges. However, we have another trade. The Cincinnati Bengals are making a big trade with the Washington Commanders. I ignore the draft capital here because I'm doing this just to simulate the trade because they're not going to be trading mainly picks. They are going to be trading Trey Hendrickson, the defensive end edge rusher, to the Washington Commanders, and then they'll extend him. Very similar to when the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown. They'll trade him draft night and extend him. Washington has the draft capital to do so. They need more in their edge room, and you can get one of the best edge rushers in the league and get him on your defense. If you looked at the board at this point in terms of edge, you could have taken Scorton or Landon Jackson, but I just kind of look at it here for Washington at this point. Trey Hendrickson's going to be better than those guys, and he's ready to play now. This is a team that's trying to become a Super Bowl contender, so now we're going to bolster their edge rush group. So what do the Bengals do here? Well, a certain player is still on the board. And we're going to go with Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, to play in Cincinnati. They do need edge. I just think there's better guys down the board that they would use. That they'd probably spend their second round pick on. I know I traded it in this mock draft suggestion. I don't realistically believe that that's what it would take. Again, we're just pretending that that was Trey Hendrickson. So, 29 overall, the Bengals with 2 first-round picks take Malachi Starks and Derek Harmon to bolster their defense. And now we can stop complaining that Cincy doesn't care about their defense. The Buffalo Bills at pick 30 overall. This breaks my heart because I really would hope he would be here. As an Eagles fan, we're going to take Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. I really love the Ole Miss defense, but you'll see how much I do in a second because Ole Miss. Trey Amos goes here to Buffalo. Really good corner. He reminds me a lot of Kelee Ringo. So if the Eagles had drafted him, I expect him and Ringo to battle for that CB2 spot. But Amos can help the Bills out in their secondary. They did just bring back Tre'Davious White, but with him, it's always a lot of health concerns. And the Kansas City Chiefs are very fortunate because Josh Simmons, the tackle from Ohio State, falls here right into their lap. They don't need him necessarily to play right away if he's not healthy. They have a guy this year. But now you've solidified the tackle position for the future. And finally, with the 32nd pick, maybe the Eagles trade out of it in this spot, but there's just no way they do. If Walter Nolan is on the board here at pick 32. So here we go, the full results of our mock draft. Cam Ward to the Titans, Travis Hunter to the Browns, Abdul Carter to the Giants, Will Campbell to the Patriots, Membu to the Niners, Ted McMillan to the Raiders, Tyler Warren to the Jets, Ashton Jeanty to the Bears, Shamar Stewart to the Saints, Jalen Walker to the Panthers, Mason Graham to the Jaguars, Matthew Golden to the Cowboys, Jahdae Barron to the Dolphins, Jahad Campbell to the Colts, Mike Green to the Falcons, Will Johnson to the Cardinals, Malachi Starks to the Bengals, Kenneth Grant to the Seahawks, James Pierce Jr. to the Bucks, Amarian Hampton to the Broncos, Calvin Banks Jr. to the Texans, Colston Loveland to the Chargers, Savon Ravel to the Packers, Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland, Jalen Milroe to the Steelers, Emeka Egbuka to the Rams, Mykel Williams to the Ravens, Donovan Ezaraku to the Lions, Derek Harmon to the Bengals, Trey Amos to the Bills, Josh Simmons to the Chiefs, and Walter Nolan to the Eagles. Hope you guys enjoyed this draft, and I hope you guys enjoyed being nerdy. This is Bird Brain saying fly, Eagles, fly, and see you all around.